All right, so a bright but hazy day out at Pescadero State Beach. I'm down at the north end, or I'm up at the north end of the beach. This is a location I haven't really explored very much. Let me show you what I'm thinking. All right, so I'm thinking of making something of this scene right here with the rocks coming out and then obviously waves in the foreground, wet sand. There's not a lot going on in the sky today, so I'm thinking of having a high horizon, maybe up around here, like say the top third, and then featuring, you know, water and waves in the bottom. Alright, so I'm going to be painting on a 16 by 24 inch panel using my Anderson easel, and I've got my usual palette of colors. Do have two guest colors today. Number one is cobalt teal, which can be handy in some of the like blue-green sections in the whitewater, and then also I do have some transparent yellow oxide over here, which is kind of handy for painting sand. Alright, so here are the brushes I anticipate using. This is a number 8 natural bristle flat, and then a number 4 natural bristle flat, and then a worn out natural bristle flat that I use for sketching. Alright, so if I wanted to really capture this scene, I'd have to use an extremely wide panorama. So I'm going to kind of compress the scene to include some of the elements that I find most interesting, like some of the rocks out here, some of the headlands, and then obviously the wet sand. So as I mentioned, not much going on in the sky, so going with a high horizon. So the rocks will come out kind of like this, and then maybe something like that. The waves kind of, it's interesting because they'll sort of break over here, and then, you know, it's almost like they come in sort of an elliptical fashion. So I'm going to try to capture some of that as well. But that's really basically the idea there. And I feel like there's a lot of area over here. This could be a problem. I don't want that much area that's just sand. So I'm just going to continue playing around with it. Basically did the same thing I usually do. I marked out the big shapes and then you know, went from the broad to the specific. And I guess what I'm mostly playing around with is looking for interesting wave shapes. It's probably hard to see this right now, but this is what I was talking about, where the wave kind of wraps around. So it's breaking, but it's not breaking in a straight line. It's kind of breaking in a curved way. So this portion of the wave is also broken over here. So there's a bit of white water, and then there's the main you know, section that's visible, the broken section that's visible. And then as the wave peels down this way, there are other sections that are breaking, and you know, perspective wise it's getting bigger. Next thing will be to lay in some of the darks. The darkest portion of the painting is going to be the rocks right where they meet the water line. Lately my go-to dark mixture is ultramarine blue mixed with some burnt sienna, and I'm thinning with liquid. And I do want to keep I want to keep the paint fairly transparent. Both of these colors are transparent colors. I'm squinting at the subject and just looking for those darkest shapes. Actually, there's a few little rocks coming out like this. I used to sort of eliminate, you know, like simplify to the point where I wouldn't have little bits of rock. I just kind of go for the big shapes. But I do find having, you know, these little suggestions of smaller rocks is really kind of helpful. All right, there we go. All right, for the lighter portion of the rocks, I'm mixing in a bit of titanium white and burnt sienna, also a touch of yellow ochre. And I will be adjusting these colors and values as well. You know, just getting something down on the panel, and then I can adjust from there. And I will try to leave some of this transparency in the final painting. All right, so next I'm gonna mix up a color for the green on the hill over here, and I'm paying attention to the values. So I'm squinting and I'm comparing the value of the hill to the sky. And so I'm thinking I'll go with a mid-tone value for the green. All right, my palette is a mid-tone gray. I've gone with a mixture of ultramarine blue, cadmium yellow medium, and a touch of alizarin crimson. And it's looking like I'm a little darker than mid-tone, but that's a good place to start. Okay, so that looks a little bit too olive green for me. All right, so I'll mix up a brighter green using phthalo blue and cadmium yellow medium. And then I'll mix that into this mixture. That's definitely closer. And there are some areas like right in here where it's much lighter. But for now, I'm just going with an average and just trying to cover the panel as quickly as possible. All right, so actually there's some rocks right in here. So I just use whenever I do something that I don't want to do, you know, I just erase it with the paper towel. For the rock portion, I'm just using titanium white and yellow ochre, thinning with a little bit of liquid. Okay. All right, so now I'm mixing a color for the sky, and I'm starting with titanium white, ultramarine blue, a bit of alizarin crimson, and you know, that gives me sort of a violet or a purple color. And that's a little bit too saturated, so I'm going to add some yellow ochre, which is the complement, to kind of gray it down. You know, I still do want it to feel slightly purple, but not really very saturated. With all of these colors that I scrub in, you know, I will be coming back and looking for shifts within those, you know, groups of colors. Like within the sky here, you know, there's some areas that are slightly darker, and then maybe areas that are slightly warmer, almost bits of little bits of yellow. What I'm trying to do at first is just cover the panel completely, so I can start, you know, judging the values and the colors, because everything is relative and I can't really tell for sure until the whole panel has been covered, and then I can start making adjustments. I'm going to use a little bit of this ultramarine blue here for these distant hills. You can see a little bit of the ocean right there, so I'll leave that unpainted. All right, so next I'm going to mix a color for the water. I'm just going to go with an average blue-green color, kind of a grayed down blue-green. All right, so I'm starting with a mixture of ultramarine blue, phthalo blue, some burnt sienna, and titanium white. And I'm going to start by suggesting where some of the darker portions of the waves are. Like there's maybe kind of an unbroken section in here. And also maybe like here. So for the lighter green portion of the water, I'm just mixing in a bit of titanium white and a little more cadmium yellow medium. All right, so there is the scrub in, and what I do now is I'll stand back and I'll look for anything that doesn't appear to be working. I feel like the directional strokes right here are they're sort of too vertical. I do want some extreme strokes in here to create a sense of motion, but I feel like they should be more like on this, like this angle here. And then they're gonna gradually go up to a more horizontal direction like this. That's definitely better. All right, so I usually have this homemade square with me. I just glued 2 pieces of wood together and I keep it in my backpack. And so I just used it to make sure that the horizon is a straight line. And you know, having a straight edge is really helpful, especially when the horizon is interrupted by rocks. And it's funny how, you know, if that's off, the eye will really see it. So I will, you know, I always carry this for that purpose. Next, I'm going to start filling in some of the, you know, these areas here of white water. And I just scrub in quickly and then leave certain areas unpainted and then pick and choose and decide which ones I want to keep for white water. I like this pattern here, I like that one. This one's interesting too. This, no, I think I want to cover that. All right, so here is what I finished up with. So the approach to the foreground here is something that I've been wanting to experiment with more. Sort of the idea, you know, of painting a painting that looks like it was viewed through a wide angle lens, kind of like a fisheye lens. So it almost looks like, you know, the foreground is right at your feet. And it's kind of a difficult perspective to capture and have it look convincing or not awkward. But I do feel like this works pretty well, and I'm definitely going to experiment with this sort of approach more in the future. And we'll do a little close-up of this portion here so you can see the brush work. All right, so to be totally honest, there was a part in this painting where I just felt like it was not working, kind of got discouraged, but I kept pushing through, and then at the end I was like, okay, I'm happy with this painting. There's one thing I want to talk about, and that's how sometimes the challenge of the painting process can actually influence our view of the painting. And so, you know, because I was kind of struggling, and there's a reason for that too, which I'll get into. I recorded 2 videos the day before and accidentally deleted them from my camera. Never happened before. I've made over 500 videos, almost 600 videos. I've never deleted files before by accident, and I did. And I was okay with that, but then I had to go out and make a video to have today's video, and there was pressure and expectation, and I think that really got in the way of it. Just kind of messed with my head a little bit, and I, halfway through the painting, I'm thinking this thing is not working, and I'm tired because the day before I filmed 2 videos and went surfing for like 2 hours. So anyway, so I got kind of discouraged, but I was like, all right, just keep going. So, and that hasn't happened in a while, and I think part of the reason is because most of the time, as I've talked about here, I approach painting with no expectation. I'll go out and I'll film the video earlier in the week. If there's a mishap or something, you know, I can always, I've got time to redo it. So just having that, you know, like, okay, gotta go out, gotta do this, gotta make a video, that sort of thing put a pressure and expectation on me that I think took away from my objectivity or my normal positive outlook on things. Anyway, but that challenging process tainted my view of the painting. And it wasn't until later that I realized this is actually a decent painting, you know? So sometimes if you're struggling, it can make you think the painting is not working when it actually is. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you'd like to see some extra videos and help support the channel, there's a Patreon link down below. It is the Patreon support that keeps me making these videos. So if that sounds interesting, check it out. Other than that, stay creative, and I'll see you guys in the next video. This water's like 55, maybe, I don't know, somewhere between 55 and 58 degrees. And there she goes, and he chickened out.